Welcome to Ladies Talk Show. This is your host, Leah Richheimer. We are on, believe it or not, ladies, chapter 13, The Queen's Gift in Marriage Secrets. We are starting up. We just finished Harmony, and we are going into a very, very beautiful, beautiful section. Here we go. 10,000 people line the main thoroughfare. Some are seated on chairs. Many have children on their laps holding small flags. The buzz of 1,000 hushed voices carries through the air. You watch as a regal guardsman eases his horse back into position in the long row of horsemen standing at attention. Lining the route are sentries wearing majestic red jackets and black velvet hats. You look through the window of your parked carriage and see the most awesome sight at the crest of the hill. A nobleman, quite familiar to you, in a posture reserved for royalty, is seated upon the most magnificent white horse you have ever seen. The man is wearing a heavy white cape adorned with shimmering gold coins. He is leading an entourage on horseback, all bearing silver shields emblazoned with the royal coat of arms. His head is held high, but without a trace of arrogance. His demeanor is one of pride mixed with gratitude, and he seems to glide with the horses as if the two were one. As the crowd notices him descending the hill, they gasp at the sight and begin to rise silently in homage. The sight of thousands of people rising reverently in response to his approach is enough to completely take your breath away. As the man passes through, all heads bow in unison, as if a wave were sending a ripple through the water. Tears flow down the cheeks of women overwhelmed by the extraordinary pageantry. All that can be heard is the clip-clop of the horses' hooves as they make their way in your direction. This man, your husband, pulls the reins taut and stops before your carriage. He dismounts onto a red velvet-covered platform and is escorted to a waiting throne. Trumpeters begin to blow with an authoritative force, heralding the start of a new era. Foot soldiers march slowly and ceremoniously to your carriage and open the door. You step out and you are handed a large embroidered white pillow. On it sits a sparkling gold crown encrusted with diamonds, emeralds, sapphires, and rubies. The weight is almost too much for you to bear. You are flanked by 2 handmaidens who escort you up the stairs. At the base of the throne, your attendants hold the pillow for you. You carefully lift the crown from its resting spot, and the maidens withdraw. You look up at the man before you. His face has taken on a new bearing, a new glow, a new sense of pride. All the years of resentment, of bickering, of stubbornness are now behind you. The tenacity with which you held on to that way of life surprised even you. But finally, understanding its senselessness has allowed you to thoroughly let go. And now a deep contentment fills your heart. You have only one life in which to dedicate yourself to making this man happy. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Life will be life. There will be stresses and conflicts. But you now have a new profound resolve to make this one life count, to love this man fully with all your heart. You are determined to do so even if it takes every ounce of your energy for the rest of your life. Your husband looks at you with gratitude and appreciation, and you smile back earnestly. You make your way behind the throne, raise the crown high, and then ceremoniously place it securely upon your husband's head. You are choked with emotion, tears making their way down your cheeks. Of this you are absolutely certain. The kingdom will never be the same. We have within our grasp the keys to all the riches that marital bliss can provide. We can be married to a man of our dreams. Hashem created the world so that all the joy and satisfaction can be found in our very own homes. It is right in front of us for the taking. It takes hard work and insight, but with determination and willingness, we can bear witness to a dramatic shift in our own home to one of harmony. It all begins by crowning our husband king. Each of us wants to be married to the king. Each of us wants to look up to her husband with adoring eyes. Each of us wants to have someone in whom we feel so confident that we'll follow him to the ends of the earth. Of course, none of us wants to be a mindless automaton purely doing her husband's will. We want to shape our future together. but life is so much better when there's a king ruling the kingdom. Making him king. I remember sitting in a shiur and a rabbi read the following quote from Rabbi Yitzhak Abuhav. A wise woman told her daughter as she was taking her to be married, stand in front of your husband as you would stand in front of the king and serve him. If you act as a maidservant, meaning that you treat him as your king, he will be your slave and respect you as a noble woman. If you lord over him, then he will act as your master and regard you as a lowly slave girl. While quite profound, I found it to be an interesting theoretical point, obviously having nothing to do with me personally. Anyway, it wasn't until about 3 months later that this concept knocked me over completely. I was sitting at our Shabbos table, minding my own business, trying to finish my slice of salmon. There was a girl of about 5 who hadn't obeyed one single command that her mother had given to her. Even though she was our guest, I had on my stern, "You better not try that with me," facial expression, to little effect. She had repeatedly stolen my shoes from under the table. Please keep it our little secret that I sometimes kick off my shoes. How embarrassing, but it's pertinent to the story. Her father would make quite a scene, chasing her down in order to get my shoes back. At one point, I called the little girl into the kitchen with me to make her my helper, plying her with a few treats to win her friendships, or at least cooperation. But when she began grabbing the food off the serving dishes and shoving it in her mouth, her mother came in and whisked her away. Finally, they gave her an ultimatum that was not privy to. I only witnessed her horrified face as the news was whispered into her ear. She promptly sat down in her seat as prim and proper as can be and proceeded to eat her vegetables. And then my husband began his Devar Torah, words of Torah. He began telling a story about a rabbi living in an old village. The rabbi had 4 sons, and they could not find a wife for any of them. The table was captivated by the ancient tale, all but the little girl. She slithered under the table, and here is where my test began. My husband, the king of our household, was in all his shining glory, delivering words of wisdom in his kindly tone. As per Rabbi Abuhav's advice, I was paying full adoring attention to my husband, the king, meanwhile curling my toes as hard as I could, trying to keep my shoes from being yanked off my feet, while simultaneously trying not to let the force of my resistance somehow kick or injure the little bandit. I tried to keep a lovely smile on my face as I gripped the table to keep my balance. If I let her have them, it would have disrupted everything. It was a full-on war, but I refused to let it in any way interrupt my husband's story. This went on for many minutes. The girl's parents didn't even notice that she was absent from her spot, and she did not tire of this game. My husband finished his story with panache, none the wiser about my raging brawl below the table. In the end, I ultimately lost the shoe battle, but I most certainly won the respect war. Whew, okay, ladies, what you got? Gila.
Wow, I love it. Okay, Miriam is asking, I want to make my husband my king, but I've spent so many years putting him down. It seems like an impossible task as he is so withdrawn and unconfident. I know it is my fault. Is there something easy I can do which will have a huge effect?
Apologize. Go to him and say, I realized all these years I just suddenly woke up to how much I appreciate you, how much I love you, how grateful I am that God gave you to me, how happy I am that you're my husband. And I realize all my actions don't follow how I really deeply, deeply feel. And I want to make it up to you. And I'm starting right now, and I'm really sorry. It's just the laws of tshuva, right there, and promising not to do them in the future. We look it up, Google it, ask your Rav, talk to a friend. What are the laws of doing tshuva? And that would be it. And that will start a whole new path. It's like you've been on this road for so many years. You're picking yourself up off that road, and you're getting on the right road. And good on you. Good kol hakavod. Good luck with it. And don't spend 6 months planning it out. Plan it out for a few hours and then just do it. You got to rip the Band-Aid off on this one. This is not one that, the more time that goes by, the more you'll convince yourself that no, I'm not going to do that. So I would just go right up to him and make an appointment right away. If you want to make an appointment for 4 days from now and then think about it until then, that's fine. But at least you've got it on the books that you're meeting him, and don't change it to some other agenda. That meeting is got to happen, and it's got to happen the sooner the better. And let the chips fall where they may. Now, it could be that he's still upset at you. It may take time to build trust. It may time for him to feel safe with you. It may take time for you to have the closeness that you're working towards. And probably it'll go ziggy zaggy, meaning, it gets bigger, feel very close. And then there'll be a backslip, and then, like that, just like anything in life. But you got to make that first step. And, good for you for being willing to even bring up the topic and to look at it and to realize it. And once you get on the right path, you'll be like, oh my goodness, why didn't I live the rest of my life this way? My history is filled with all the stupidity. Why? And that regret will spur you on to work harder to apologize more, because it might take you apologizing 10 times to get him to really feel like it's a real apology, and then your actions have to change. So good luck with it. I give you a bracha for koyach in this, and you should also have a pat on the back for being willing to go forward.
Yay.
Hashikach. Wow. Okay.
Beautiful. Adele's asking, I'm the oldest and my parents always relied on me to take charge. It's so difficult to hand over the reins to my husband when it is so ingrained in my nature and nurture. What can I tell myself to really give me the push I need?
The push she needs to do what?
To let go of control and the reins and let her husband be the king.
I see. It's a toughie, because I had a whole audience of people or whatever, and I was talking about, making him the king and whatever, and everyone wants to be the queen so that they can whatever. And so meek girl raised her hand, a woman, and she said, Leah, I'm really embarrassed to admit this, but I want to be the king. I don't want to be the queen. I actually want to be the king, and there are a lot of nods in that audience. So so I get it. And frankly, the whole Western society is saying, be the powerful one, be the one in control, be the one who calls the shots, So it's very hard for us to undo 70 years of like, this is how you quote unquote should be. So it's not an easy thing. But the beautiful news is, once you start down this path and once you start letting him take control, it's like you have less stress in your life, like things that you before would fight about, like, no, let's leave it 2. We really need to work. We'll leave it 2. The beach, there's going to be no parking there, whatever. And you're like, he says, no, I want to leave it 3. And you're fighting over it, right? So you leave it 3. And guess what? There's no parking. You get there. There's, the concession stand is closed. You can't get sunscreen, whatever it is. So you were right. But there was shalom. So this is a what's it called? Like, once you start working on letting go of control, there'll be all kinds of benefits in your life that you will start to see. Like, your husband will get there and the no parking, whatever, and he'll turn to you and you say, next time we're listening to you. Whereas if you had fought him tooth and nail, right, to leave it 2 instead of leaving it 3, you would have ended up leaving it 2:20. Maybe you would have gotten a parking lot, maybe you wouldn't, or whatever, but the most powerful way is if you let him have control. He's going to say, what time do you think we should, next time you go, he's going to say, what time do you think we should leave, dear? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the method. It's very, very addictive to make this switch, because once you start making it, your life just gets so much better, when you give up the control. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. Try this at home. Do a couple of things where you're just letting him make the decisions on certain things. That start with things you don't care about, like what time you get to the beach, 2 or 3, that kind of thing. Then you work up. And if you let him have control over everything, then when there's something really important to you, you really, really want to have, your sister come out, she's having a hard time and you want her to stay at the house for a week. And typically you'd have fight about for 10 days of fighting about this request of yours. If you're letting him have control on everything that is not important, then when it comes to something really, really important to you, he'll bend his ear to you. And we know that from Chazal. Rabbi Bambuta is the one who said, if you do that, he'll bend his ear to you. I'm pretty sure. Not so great at exactly who said what, but it's in the book, because if I write it down, then I know it's there. So it's a fabulous question. Okay, what you got for me, Gila?
Okay, Feigi's asking, I really want to make my husband the king, but it feels like an overwhelming task. Can you please give me one practical thing to start with?
Good question. Um, I have women who now stand for their husband when he walks in the room. The husband sometimes gets uncomfortable with it. And I think one of the master Rav, and the Rav said, no, you're not obligated to do that. And she said, can I? And he said, it's probably a nice thing, whatever. So ask your Rav. I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm just saying that there are certain things in our own minds to make us see him as the king. So it could be that you fluff his pillow before he goes to bed, or it could be that you set his table first before everybody else. And we're going to get into a lot of tips and techniques in just in the next show of things to do for respect. But putting his place setting, and Leah, excuse me, if I serve him first, and put his plate and his fork and his knife, and then do everybody else's after, he'll never know. He'll come to the table, they all look the same. And the secret is you will know. Okay. And knowing means it's just a shift in your own attitude. I'll get to a lot more in the next show. Okay, go ahead, Gila. What else?
Okay. Leah, I just remember something you told me one time is about serving your husband versus serving your father. Let's say on the Shabbos table, and you say you serve your husband first.
Yep.
Right. That's one good example
Yeah,
that
that's
I took
fantastic.
on.
Yeah, oh, it's great. I know, isn't that shocking? I know. I had to ask a Shiloh about that because it's like, really? Like I give it up an aim? It's like, nope. Your husband is closer to you than even your parents, even your blood relatives. Yeah, very good.
Okay, so Basti is asking, I've gotten used to certain habits that disrespect my husband that I don't even know where to begin to change things for the better. What is a small step in the right direction? So
Okay,
again,
same, a little similar. Yeah, we're going to get to more show in the next show, but I think a step in the right direction would be first to notice what you're doing that's disrespectful. I think that's very, very powerful to freeze you in the middle of things. That's one thing. But I would take on one little thing like greeting him at the door, or never not interrupting him, or when he starts talking to you, and you're in the middle of sending an urgent text or whatever, and you haven't even hit send yet, you put your phone down, like that. Okay, so pick something like that. Pick the easiest one, because if you're picking hard ones, you're going to give up the whole thing. But as if you start with little steps, that's how you succeed in this. That's not Leah Richheimer's idea. That's Rav Yerucham. Okay, go ahead.
Those are great examples. Okay, so Shana Bracha's asking, my husband likes it when I take control. However much I try to hand over the control to him, he hands it right back to me. I feel a bit stuck.
So I think you're confusing decision-making with control. So decision-making is, like, let me just think. Like she's saying, oh, Moshe was playing baseball with his friends all afternoon, and now tonight it's night seder or whatever, but he wants to go and go to his friend's chasana or something. I'm off the spur of the moment examples, but whatever. And then you're like, should we let him go? Or he took off the afternoon with some of those. They had a thing with whatever. Should we let him go? And the husband says, you decide. So that's a decision-making point. It has to do with control, but it also has to do with, two heads are better than one, and you want his opinion, and you could say, okay, I'll decide, but did you have any thoughts on it? And if he says no, that's not you taking control. He said, that's a decision I don't need to be involved with. And that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like he has to make every, step of every decision in life. But if most husbands do like to give their opinion and do like to give their 2 cents. And it's very annoying. Have you ever have somebody that comes to you, what should I do, Leah? And you say, oh, I've had that issue before. If there's a place to get window washing at this, something at this location. And they say, fine. And then like they come next week and like, how did it work out with the window washer? And you're like, oh, I didn't call them. Or, when you give someone advice and they don't follow it, it's just like that feeling like, why am I wasting my breath? Sometimes, it's fine. Someone asks you advice or whatever, your daughter-in-law or something, your son-in-law, asks you advice or whatever. And you say, you don't have to take it, do whatever you want. This is what I would do in that situation, whatever. That's fine. And then they don't do it. Totally fine, especially with daughters and sons-in-laws who stay out of it. But I'm just saying that if you're always asking your husband advice and then always doing what you want, kind of loses his feeling of power and effect. And like, when you ask a husband, oh, what should I do? And he's, I don't know, should I drop the thing off before or after? He says, no, drop it off. You'll feel so much better. And then you drop it off on your way to the hasna. You have to take all these left turns and whatever, but you get it there. And then you go to the hasna, and then you see him, on the way home, and you say, when you get home, you say, I can't believe it. You were so right. If I had dropped it off after the wedding, I was so exhausted. I wouldn't have done it, or I would have gotten there late, and they wouldn't have been. I wouldn't have greeted someone at the door. I would have dropped it at the house and left it on the stairs, and all night worried whether someone stole it or not. You were so smart, right? Do you know what that does to a man? Do you have any idea how you constantly saying you were right about your advice, how it bolsters them and makes them stronger and stronger, and they are the man that you always wanted to look up to? And they're smart. They're smarter than we give them credit for. They make a couple of stupid decisions, or whatever. They can't, they wash a dish and still got eggs on it and soap, and like, oh my gosh, what do they do something? So then they're lowered in our eyes, and we don't give them those little problems, big problems. But do you know what it does for a man when you ask it advice, he gives you his advice, and then you take it, and then you tell him how valuable his advice was? I'm telling you, you will be married to a different man if you follow this simple to-do strategy. I'm telling you, and you got to do it with a full heart. Okay, I hear that, and maybe he has dumb ideas, and maybe he says, oh no, you should, go to the wedding first and drop it after. And you're like, oh, but wait a minute, if you knew in your head the better thing to do is drop it off first, and he gives you the opposite advice. Just take the opposite advice. And then if you can say something nice about it after, even, okay, you get there, you knock on the door, no one's there. Now you leave it, it's on the steps or whatever, and then it gets stolen, whatever. As much as you can to take advice, especially on the little things to get you started and get you rolling, you will see your husband's a lot smarter than you think he is. And doing this, giving him that respect, that covet, just changes his whole personality, his whole perspective in life, his ability to be successful in business, his ability to bring in Parnasa, because he feels trusted. And I want to tell you a side story. I know there's a little off topic, but I'm just going to tell you. There was a woman who called me up, this is many years ago, and she said to me, she said, Leah, don't call myself a child expert or whatever by any means, but she called me up and she said, I don't know what to do. My kid was caught cheating on something. And my husband, we want to punish him. What punishment should we give him? What should we do? Like, it happened in school, and they're probably right, but I'm not even sure they're right, and maybe there's a misunderstanding or whatever. And I said I would leave that, and I would say to your son, by the way, I never mentioned to you, we have two $100 bills that we keep underneath the nightstand, or underneath, in the bottom drawer of daddy's thing. You see, do they have yellow pages? Do you guys know what yellow pages are? Whatever. No, we keep them underneath, the big fat book at the bottom thing, and then take them in that room and show him and say, this is where they are. If you ever have any kind of an emergency, that's where you get the money. The other thing you should do is where do you keep your passports? There? Okay, fine. Take them to the passports and say, this is where our passports are. If anything ever happens to us, or if you ever need to get these, this is where they are. And she said, Leah, you are out of your mind. You're out of your mind. We were just told he was not trustworthy, and you're saying, trust him? And I'm like, he's probably trustworthy, and kids experiment. And, I don't know how old the kid was. I can't even remember. It was 12, 13, something of that age range that I remember. But it was about 7 years later, it came out. They actually went to therapy or something like that. It actually came out, and she was a friend of mine. So it came out, and he said that one of the most powerful things that happened to him in his childhood was when they showed him where they kept their $100 bills, and when they showed him where the passport is. Now, why is that? First of all, I don't know how God put that in my head. So good on me, but I don't know how. It's just a fluke, whatever. But the thing is that why is it that that was so powerful in his life? It's because just when his shaky self-image was shaky and shaken, whether it was the principal called or a teacher, who knows, whatever, it was shaken. Just at that exact moment where it was shaking, they grounded him. They grounded him and said, we trust you. And it's the same thing with your husband. Give him that trust. Trust him with the decisions, and he will become more and more trustworthy. I give you a bracha. It should go well. A great question. Thank you for asking it. Okay, let's go. I think we have time for another question.
Yeah, one more question. Such good perspective, Leah. Okay, Hannah's saying, this sounds terrible, but when I give my husband the control to make decisions, he often messes up. Even if he realizes this, I'm doing the action of giving him control, but I don't respect him as he often messes up. I know this is unhealthy. What should I do?
Change your definition of what messing up means. You think messing up, because he made the decision to invest, $2,000 in this new startup that went bankrupt, mess up. You know what? You keep trusting him, trusting him, trusting him. Hashem himself, the Shekhinah, will come because you are trusting him, and he'll make his decisions better. Meaning he'll make a stock that you're like, oh gosh, and then it goes bankrupt or whatever. And then, you're still trusting him and he says, oh, and I want to put $2,000 over here. And you're like, and you're just trusting him and you're just trusting him. And Hashem will make the next stock, or that one that went bankrupt, they had a reversal and they were bought out by, Elon Musk or, whatever. I don't know. It's like there's a spiritual world out there, and what you think of as a mess up, as a, he messes up or whatever. And I hear, because, someone said to me, Leah, it's been like years and years and years of him not making good decisions. I hear that. So in your case, maybe I would think that you have to walk him through. He's not a logical thinker, and you need to help him. Maybe, who knows whether your ideas are any smarter or better than his. But the first thing to go look at is whether you're really fully trusting him enough to bring the bracha in from Shemayim to help with the situation. I would look at that introspection first. And then it could be true that you just have a husband who just, for whatever reason, they're gezer from Hashem, or he's just bad thinking, or he doesn't have logical thinking or whatever. It could be that. And then you can work with him on that and talk to him and say, oh, can we logically look at this? Let's look at the pros and cons of this company that you want to invest in. Or, I know nothing about this, but my friend's brother is a broker. Can we call him and just get his input on that company? Something like that, which is understandable. And you can go that route, but the very, very first route I would go is to look at where your lack of trust is causing him not to have hatzlacha in his decisions. That's the power that a woman has to do that introspection and can really shift the whole thing around. Okay. Is that clear? Did that make sense, Gila? Okay, good. Okay, so we're out of time. I have to give my homework. Okay. So one time this week, when you're absolutely positive that you are right about something, let it go. You're absolutely sure. Let it go and watch how Hashem runs the world. Okay? It might turn into a disaster. It might turn into surprise you and be better than you ever thought possible. So that's a risk. That's like a little risk taking, but I promise you there's bracha in giving your husband that power and that control. Okay, this is Leah Richheimer for the Ladies Talk Show. We'll see you next show.